So the discussion today is, as written on the board, Pesach and the formation of a nation. What was it about the formation of the Jewish people that makes it stand out so much from all the other nations that have existed through world history? We'll begin with a quote from a famous book called The Ancient World. I don't have this book, but my father-in-law does. One of these like classic books. Professor Glover. Look on the section 1, note 1. He says, no people of the East has had a stranger history than the Jews. The ancient religion of the Jews survives when all the religions of every ancient race of the pre-Christian world have disappeared. Right? They've all gone. The Greeks have gone. The Romans have gone. The Babylonians have gone. The Medians, the Moabites, they've all gone. Again, it is strange, there is again. He finds it strange. For us, it's not strange, we're going to see. But for him, it was. That the living religions of the world all build on religions, ideas derived from the Jews, which most religions do. Some directly, some a little indirectly. The great matter, offered to historians, is not what happened, but why did it happen? Why does this race continue? Now, we're not a race, by the way. We're not a race. That's what people have called us in the past. Most recently, Hitler, Yimach Shemo, tried to give us racial qualities. We're not a race, that's why Jews come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. There are black Jews, there are white Jews, there are green Jews, there are orange Jews, yellow Jews as well. Every type. Okay, we're not a race. We are a what? We're a nation. We're an Am Yisrael. Okay, it's not a racial thing. Right? Racial will mean exclude people not part of that race. We're not going to exclude anybody. Anyone can become part of our nation. Okay, but there's rules to get in, but once you're in, you're in. Okay, so we are an which is why people who convert, who have no history to this event of Pesach coming out of Egypt, still have to keep all the laws and all the mitzvot. Okay, although they sit there and they'll say, my forefathers were slaves in Egypt. No, they weren't. You're a convert. Why are you saying that my forefathers and foremothers were slaves in Egypt? The answer is, once you join the nation, you're part of the nation. And the nation's history is your history. And the nature of Jewish survival is part of your Jewish survival as well, even though you just joined the Jewish people yesterday, or whenever it was. Okay? So we're not a race, we are a nation, but that's what he refers to us as. Why does Judaism live, he says? He's not Jewish, by the way, this guy. How did it really begin? These questions will be answered here in my book, but there lies the uniqueness of the Jews. Happens to be that he's onto something. And it is strange for other nations and historians and sociologists try to figure out how the Jewish people survived all this time. Let's try to figure out exactly why that is. You can jump to the next source. We did that piece already. Let's talk about the nation's birth, because we were born as a nation. We were born as a nation, and we were born not, as some people incorrectly think, from Abraham. Right? Abraham was not given the Torah. He was a very holy person. We are descendants of Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Jacob. However, we started as a nation at Pesach. So Pesach really stands out, not just for the miracles that happened that we discussed already, but Pesach stands out because that's the beginning of our nationhood. If you want to understand the Jewish people, you have to understand Pesach. Pesach has inside it all the secrets of all of Jewish history. And it's the beginning, if you will, of the national Jewish history, okay, of us as a nation. There were people beforehand, right? We have ancestors that precede this, obviously, which we talk about, which are in the Torah, which are important to us. But as an it starts over here. Now, there is we'll see a famous metaphor, analogy, that is used to describe this. And it is one of birth. It is one of birth. As in the expression, the birth of a nation, it works. So it actually goes to 3 phases. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. On the next page. And we're going to start with Chaim Friedlander, source 3 and 4 on the next page. Okay? So we start, first of all, with the exile of the Jewish people in Egypt. We were in exile, right, in Egypt. That's how we started as a nation. Okay? And we were in Egypt for how many years? 210 is correct. I'd write that down if I were you. That may come in handy for the final, I'm just saying. 210 years, right? Although we were told we had 400 years in the Torah, the Baruch Baruch did us a favor, took us out early. Many reasons why. One of the main reasons, had we stayed any longer, we were completely assimilated and not left at all. Okay? There's other certain accountings, but we're there for 210 years. So that's the exile in Egypt. This is like a fetus in the womb. Just like a fetus resides in the womb. Okay? That's what we developed. 2, we were taken out. Right? We were taken out. Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's comparable to the birth of the baby. And finally, the third phase is we went from Mitzrayim to Har Sinai, which is how long? 49 days. Right? On the 50th day we received the Torah. So we were taken to Har Sinai. Because remember, the reason we left Mitzrayim was to get Har Sinai. That was just a preparation. We couldn't be given the Torah in Egypt. We'll see why a little bit later. And that's the growth and the maturation. Okay, we grew. That's the growth of the people. Okay, now that carried on for a long time afterwards. All right. So those are the 3 phases. Just like a fetus in the womb is developed, okay, and all the bumping around in there. Then the taking out. Hashem took us out. And actually, what does it say?
What is that growth of?
Growth of the people. Sorry. I'm like a doctor, right?
Basically.
Growth of the people, yeah. Okay, so those are the 3 phases. And just like the Torah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did what for us? He took a nation out of another nation. That is very, very much like the birth of a child from the womb, right? Hashem goes in and took us out. So we were born at that time. That is the metaphor that is used. There's a lot more to it, by the way. Right? How does birth work? How does gestation of a woman go? It lasts a long time, right? And at first highly noticeable, and it gets more difficult and more difficult, and then you go from death to life, right? The baby is absolutely about to come out, and the mother is in absolute pain, and is about to go through, well, not actually, but in some sense it is, right? The baby is living inside a liquid, right, sac, yeah, and then it comes out, and immediately it starts to die, and then everything flips around, right? All the channels close off, and it moves from a liquid state into a air state. So to the Jewish people, had a certain existence in Egypt, and when they left, it was a complete different state. Okay, we're going to go through inside.
What did you read on the board after you take out of Har Sinai?
Taken out of Egypt, that's the birth, and taken to Har Sinai, growth of the people, right? The maturation of the people. So let's have a look at this piece inside. Follow inside, and he goes through these 3 phases. By the way, this number 3 is a key point. We're going to see the number 3 appear a number of times in the Pesach Seder. Okay, anyone know the classic example of it? What's the famous 3s we see? 3 matzos we have on the table, which are connected Avram and Yaakov, which are connected Cohen, Levi, Yisrael, 3 types of Jew as well. So number 3 is very representative of our people as well. Okay, so we'll come to that a little bit later. When we get to the Seder table, we're spending a lot of time at the Seder table, and it goes like this. Hashav Rishon, it says the first place is Galut Mitzrayim, the Galut, the exile in Egypt. Nim Shlahil Mea Ibur, which is compared to a fetus in the womb. Right? You can't see the fetus from outside. It's all hidden inside. The Jewish people were hidden inside Mitzrayim. Right? No one knew we were there. It was a complete hidden reality. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu began the exodus from Egypt. Right? It's Yetzirat Yisrael, the formation of the Jewish people. Hester Panim. Right? Hashem started with Hester Panim, with his hidden hand. That's how it started, because you couldn't see the Jewish people. There were no overt miracles yet. No one knew they were God's chosen people. They're just Hebrews at this point. They were living in Egypt. It seemed as though there was no judge and no God. Just another random nation that found themselves stuck in Egypt. And it seemed like the Egyptians, right, the evil Egyptians, as they were torturing us and subjugating us, were doing whatever they wanted. That's how it seemed. Ulam, however, But people started to see, right? If one looked beneath the surface, that Shkach Hashem Yisbarach. Right? If you look inside, you see the amazing reality that was happening. B'tocha Hester, inside the hidden. So it started as a hidden reality, just like the Purim story, if you will. Phase 2, Hashlav Hasheni Yitzir Mitzrayim v'Nimshla Leida. Yitzir Mitzrayim was like a leida, it's like a birth. Okay? Al Tkufat Zonemar, as it says, this period is called has there been a God who has taken one nation, Mikarev Goy, from another nation? Just like a person guides and pulls a fetus out of the womb of an animal, Hashem took us out himself. Hashem, as it were, put his hand inside, right, and pulled us out. That's important because every other nation was created by man. What we're saying over here, implicit, is the Jewish people were created by God. Right? Every other nation is basically people living together in a country. They form a society. They then make laws, and they live together, and they call themselves a nation. Right? Whether it's the United States, right, or the British, or wherever you want to be. They're always saying people just live together, and they begin a nation. The Jewish people are completely different. Hashem himself created this nation. Now, that alone should open up a whole bunch of other questions, such as, well, why? Why could the Jewish people have just formed like any other nation? Why does it have to be that Kadosh Baruch himself formed us as an Right? It's going to speak, the answer is going to be, about our mission in this world, which is going to be a godly mission, representing God. Right? If a person creates a company himself, we assume this person has a plan for that company. Right? He's got a plan for that reality. Okay. And the Exodus happened very quickly. Right? Yitzir Mitzrayim hayeta pitomit, quickly. It was zman kasar yoter, just like birth. You go from pregnancy, for months and months and months and months, and then suddenly, boom, there it comes. Right? It's just immediate. You go from death to life. Right? Just like a fetus leaves the mother. Okay. After period, Memsa Hashem Hester Panim of Rubarega Achad Legulish Shel Nisim Gluyim. So it goes from hiddenness to revealed miracles, saying like, wow, like the baby came out, suddenly there's like nothing there, suddenly, oh, there's a creature there. Right? There's a baby there, it's unbelievable. And it happens in an instant. Rataf Shefra Liyam, right? So we see that this is comparable to, this metaphor works for the Jewish people as well. As soon as we came out, it became world known. Everyone knew the Jewish people were leaving Mitzrayim. Right? It became an international reality. And it has been for thousands of years. Right? To such a level that the miracles were over. So we go from complete hidden miracles in Egypt, of which there were a number of them, right? In terms of the birth, of children, how they came out, in fact, we survived that time. Suddenly, all became completely miraculous, right? With the plagues and the Exodus itself. To such a degree that it says that when we went through the Yam Suf, which happened 7 days later after leaving Egypt, I'd write that down. 7 days after leaving Mitzrayim, we stood at the Yam Suf and went through the Yam Suf. That's the 7th day of Pesach, the last day of Pesach, actually. It says that even a simple maidservant saw miracles that even Ezekiel, the prophet, never saw. Ezekiel ben Buzi, right? Which, by the way, he saw one of the greatest prophecies, second Moshe Rabbeinu, of history, right? The prophecy of the chariot of the Merkavah. That's Ezekiel. Even the lowest maidservant who was going through the Yam Suf saw things greater than any prophet, besides Moshe Rabbeinu, right through history. It was all revealed. It was all miraculous. So what's phase 3? So phase 1, if you will, is the thesis. Phase 2 is the antithesis. And phase 3 is the synthesis. Phase 1 is the thesis that there is a God who runs the world. Phase 2 is the antithesis of what everything's happening in this world. God changed the rules of nature to create this nation of the Jewish people. That's the antithesis of what anyone expects, what we expected. But then finally, it becomes a synthesis, right? As the Jewish people take on their role and get to Har Sinai and receive the Torah. And that's the final stage. Hashlav Hashlishi, between the days of coming out of Egypt to receive the Torah. Lachar Aleida Ba'em Yemei Gedula, right? Because come from after birth, you have growth, right? The baby grows. Kol hamadragot shekablu b'matana. Beitzis Mitzrayim. These were all from the gift of Yitzis Mitzrayim. Aleinu lo sotan yisod v'kidin nefshenu al yedei avodat atzmit. And that took work. Right? That took a lot of work. Just like the bring up a child and the takes a lot of work and effort and crying and screaming and feeding and all the rest of it. And by the way, this metaphor carries on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu fed us with a man, just like a mother feeds a child. Hashem, and the man is referred to as lavan, the white stuff, just like the milk comes from the mother to the child as well. Right? The white stuff. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sustained us and made us. Okay. So our creation as a nation is completely different. Every other nation, right through history, always happens in the same way. And what's that? Always. A bunch of people, as we said, live together. They just conquer a land or form in the land after being there for a while, and they start to make laws, right? And establish themselves as a nation, just like here in America, right? They came from England or other places, and they said, we've got to live together, right? So we've got to make laws. So let's make a, Declaration of Independence, and let's make a constitution. Where was that written? Here in America, right? In the United States. That's the way it was written. This is completely backwards. And this is a very important point. The Jewish people were taken out of Mitzrayim and formed as a nation before they were given a land and before they were given any form of law. So it always works that first of all you get a land, then you create laws, and you declare yourself as a nation, and you make a flag and all the rest of it. The Jewish way is absolutely opposite, 180 degrees different. First of all, you become an you become a nation. Then you get given a Torah, you get given the law, and then they took the law as a nation into the country, into Israel. Can you see that? Are you following over here? Can you see how that's completely backwards? That is not coincidence. Hashem could have given us the Torah in Israel. That could have been what he did. He could have taken us to Jerusalem. That would have been better, wouldn't it? Rather than the middle of a desert. Hashem could have taken us to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem could have given us the Torah in Eretz Yisrael and said, here are your laws. You're now a nation. Good luck. What does this reveal to us? What is this telling us?
How important, how important the Torah is. Like, if he gave it in the land, we would have saw it as anything. Like, okay, thank you, but he made such a big deal out of it, and
So very good. So that one is the land. So the land is not as important as the law. The fact that the law was given. Are you following? We got to get this. We got to get this. First of all, number one, right? We become a nation. This is the order of it, and the order is very important. First, we become a nation, an Am. Secondly, what happens? We get given the Torah. Thirdly, we get given the land. Right? So it's nation, Am, then it's Torah, then it's land. The land is Eretz Yisrael, of course. No matter what they tell you in the media, the land of Israel was given to the Jewish people 1,000 years ago and still ours. Okay? Other nations, they get the land first, so they conquer a land, then they create laws, and they declare themselves as a nation. It's the exact opposite. So why is it going this way? Why is this the direction it has to go through in order for us? And what is the purpose? What do we learn from this? What do I care? We have all three now. What's the big deal? So you can see that being an is the most important thing. That's first. But as a nation, you need to get given the Torah. And that's God's guide for us. Hashem created us as a nation. Then Hashem says, here's your Torah. Take the Torah into the land. So it's, if you will, it's priorities over here. In other words, are we still a nation without the land? Only the Jews. If you leave America, if you leave the United States of America, do you have to hold by the laws of America? No, you don't. The laws are tied in the other country to the land. They become one. But the Torah is not that way. The Torah is its own thing. And the land is its own thing. Now the land is the best place to keep the Torah, there's no doubt about that. And the reason we got the Torah was to take it into the land and keep it there. But they're separate realities. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew we would end up in Galus in exile. Listen very carefully. And we wouldn't have a land. But if the Torah was given in the land, what would you say? That's where we keep the Torah. When you're outside the land, there's no Torah. Just like when you're outside France, there's no French law. You're outside America, there's no American law. But Hashem says, no. The Torah is its own reality. Take it into the land. The nation is its own reality. And that's what was given the Torah. So each one of these is its own. This three-phase system accumulates itself. That's why the Torah is given outside the land, and that's why the nation had to be formed first. So you know that we were created by God. It's a godly nation. Kadosh, a Goy Kadosh referred to. A Goy Kadosh. That's how the Torah refers to us. Fun enough, I went to a wedding the other day, coincidentally enough, and the guy comes up to me and he's like, oh, I came to your shiur in Greatneck. He's talking to this Persian guy. I said, thank you very much. He goes, I've enjoyed it, thank you. I said, what's your name? He said, my last name, his first name, I don't know what it was. So he says, my last name is Goy Kadosh. I said, wow, what a name. Goy Kadosh. He says, you know, like in Shemot, Yud Tet Vav, 19:6, the Jewish people, before given the Torah, are called a Goy Kadosh, a holy nation. So I said, my name's Hagio. You'll find that in the Quran, Surah 15, and verse... You found that very funny, actually. Goy Kadosh, what a great name. I think that's fun, that's a great name. Isn't it better than Goldberg, isn't it? Goy Kadosh. There was a rabbi there called Rabbi Shaliach Tzibur. That was his name. You met him? Famous rabbi and great name. Shaliach Tzibur. That's that name? Okay. So that's what we get. We have a Goy Kadosh. Hashem himself took us out, meaning Hashem created us. We have a mission. Your mission is Torah. And you know what? In addition to that, you've got to take it to the land. But let's say we don't have a land, you still have a Torah. And for 2,000 years we didn't have a land and we still have the Torah. And why do we keep it? As a nation. The Torah is given to us as a nation, not as individuals, which is why Avram Avinu was not given the Torah. Oh, this is the missing piece. Why was Avram Avinu not given the Torah? So the Rambam says, because it couldn't be that way. Because it had to be given to a nation. It's a national thing. The Torah law is not dependent on land or on any one person. It's a national thing. Now that's the punchline. You're writing this down. Are you understanding this? You've never heard this before. I know you haven't. Because I know anyone talks about this. Okay? So we're not making... That's why we say in Aleinu, Shaloah Sanu Kigor Asod, we're not like any other nation. Am Yisrael, Aleinu Kigoy Arasod, we're not like the other nations that key. Our creation as a nation and our Torah is not tied into the land. If it was, we would have forgotten the Torah and our whole nation would have disappeared thousands of years ago. Because we were kicked out 2,000 years ago by the Romans. Are we getting this? Are we seeing, is it coming together? And that's why he says the Jewish people do not receive the land of Israel in the way the other nations piece of land. Right? Why do people receive the land? Actually, even Herzl said, why did Herzl? Where did Herzl want the land of the Jewish people to go to? Right? After Dreyfus Affair, you've learned this stuff, right? You don't know Zionist history. Where did Theodore Herzl want the Jews to go? You want to go to Uganda, Argentina, and they turned around and said, no, right? Chaim Weizmann said, no, we have to go to Israel. Even the secular Jews understood at the time, the Jewish people have to be in the land of it. That's our country, right? Why did Herzl want that to be the way? Because he wanted a safe haven. He said the Jewish people need a land to get away because Europe's going crazy. He was right about that, right? He talked about Dreyfus Affair. They're going to come and kill us. He was right about that as well. We're going to get the heck out. He was right. But his reasoning was not correct. Meaning the reason we need a land isn't just because the land itself is there for the Torah to be kept in. It is a holy land, right? It's Eretz HaKodesh.
So when did the Muslims come?
Oh, they were there hundreds of years ago, but not before us. They didn't exist, right? We have traces, but the Jewish people have always been there. By the way, when I say we were kicked out of Israel, there were Jews who were there. Always Jews in Eretz Israel. They weren't totally eliminated from the land. There were always Jews there. We've always had a strong presence. Okay, and we know those who weren't there tried to get there for thousands of years, right? go back. The Ramban tried to go there. All the Jews over the thousands of years have tried to get back in. It wasn't always so easy. Right? There wasn't any nefesh b'nefesh in those days. You just like pick up your LL flight and off you go. Okay. Okay. So that's what we refer to as an a goy kadosh, right? Mamelechet Kohanim, right? A nation of priests. The land is crucial. It's very, very important to us. But our survival as a nation, our creation, is not dependent on the land. In other words, many people say, well, Israel, what we're all about. And then in Israel, we have all this stuff going, no. We're all about being a nation created by God with a Torah. And then as a subset, where's the best place for that to happen? In Eretz Yisrael. Right? Keeping the Torah in Eretz Yisrael is considered far, far greater than anywhere else. According to the Ramban, doing mitzvahs outside of Israel, discuss this next semester in the next level course, keeping the mitzvahs outside of Israel is just practice for when you do get to Israel. Just practice. I mean, you get rewarded, but it's meant to be in Eretz Yisrael. Oh, the Jewish people were kicked out, so we're stuck. We've got to keep it outside. We have no choice. But our dependence as a nation is not dependent only on the land. Are we seeing that? Have I said that enough times for us to be inside your heads? Fantastic. Turn over the page. So he says, Lo bit yasham beretz Yisrael nasu la'am. It wasn't because we just rested there, became a nation. El lehefech. Okay. That's the Herzl. So Herzl said no, safe haven. We Jews like no, it's not safe haven. Actually, it's pretty unsafe to be in a lot of parts of Israel right now. That's not why we're there. It's safer to be in Wyoming. I don't recommend. All right. Im yusam la'am kiblos Torah. First become a nation, we become unified. Then we get given the Torah. And after 40 years, although originally that was Plan B. Plan A was that we would go directly from Har Sinai in a few weeks to Eretz Yisrael. That was the original plan. Right? So we had a whole problem with Chet Egel, some of the golden calf, right? And it kicked into Plan B, which was 40 years. So that generation died out. But the original plan was that the Jewish people would go directly from Har Sinai to Eretz Yisrael. So even Plan A was this. Okay. And that's why he says, Shekol Hamtziut Em Yisrael Nios Al Yedei Yitzias Mitzrayim. So the whole nation, right, was formed, right? Like a Chol Ha'amim Nitaru La'amim Ma'aleim, who created nations by themselves. Masha'en Ken Am Yisrael Hashem Sprach Asautam La'am. God brought us into a nation. B'Yisrael Mitzrayim took us out of Egypt. V'lo La'am Ragil, not like any other regular nation. Kisharamim El La'amo. He became his nation. So Hashem acquired us. When you make something, you own it. When you make something, you own it. And although you may let go a little bit, you're always connected to it. Okay? Just like a mother is always mother of a child, no matter how bad the child gets, and then she can kick him out of the house, right, and get rid of him, still a child of the mother. When it comes down, the mother's are going to be there.
What about the father?
Same with the father, yes. Right. Im Hashem. We hope so. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is our Father in heaven. Avinu Shebashamayim. Right? We refer to Hashem as our Father as well. Right? Masha'en King Laku Etchem Li La'am. Hashem took us a nation to Him. And we made Hashem our God. So actually, we didn't really go free when we left Egypt. It was just a change of owner. It went from Paro to Hashem. Okay. I mean, we prefer the latter, but not everyone wanted it. Many people wanted to stay in Egypt, and they did, as we already said. Okay. So let's tie this all together. Let's finish it off. V'zer matara. That is the matara. That is the aim, the purpose, the focus. Right? Kol Yitzir Mitzrayim v'tachlet liot am avodah Hashem. We left Egypt to come service to Hashem. Uvanav ha'oisim ratzu. Right. And that's why it says, I shall take you on the wings of eagles, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You'll be for me a prized nation, we're calling for the other nations. A holy nation of priests, a holy nation. Right? And we said the word kadosh, we discussed that word already, right? What is kadosh? Did we discuss this already? Oh dear. Dear. Oh dear. Let's discuss it right now then. The word kadosh is a very important word. Right? Oh, we did it before. Didn't we discuss that before? What does what kadosh? We did discuss this. What does kadosh mean?
Well, it's sanctified.
Sanctified. Oh, but what does it literally mean? There's always a root. Kadosh means separate, distinct, apart, not the same. Eretz Yisrael is an Eretz Kodesh. The Torah, right, is kadosh. The Jewish people are an Am Kadosh. We just saw that. It means we're separate, not the same as other nations. Eretz Yisrael is not the same as other places. Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh, is not the same as any other language. Right? It's not the same as French or English. It's a different reality. It's the language Hashem created the world with. It's the language that the Torah was given to us in. Right? So it's separate. So we became a holy nation. We became separate. That's all it means. For something to be holy, it's separate and distinct. Right? It's unique. Okay? Let us continue. Let us go on. Now this Exodus of Egypt, Yetzias Mitzrayim, is mentioned a lot in the Torah in connection to, I mean, as far as I know, at least 35 mitzvot in the Torah.
What is mentioned?
Yetzias Mitzrayim. Coming out of Egypt is mentioned again and again, not just as the event itself, but in relation to other mitzvot. I brought down a few of them in the book. Look at section 2, Divine Providence and Belief in God. Jump to note 2, if you will, for a second. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, Lama li techte Rachmana Yetzias Mitzrayim beribis. Hashem mentions Yetzias Mitzrayim when it comes to the mitzvah of not charging interest. You're not allowed to charge, right, another Jew interest. Or the mitzvah of tzitzit, right, or the mitzvahs of being honest in business. It mentions Egypt. Why would that be? Why is it Mitzrayim mentioned in terms of that? Okay, we'll see inside. It kas polotin b'neshach. You can't give in. You can't charge another Jew interest. In Hashem Elokechem, Hashem says Yeschem Mitzrayim, because the Lord took you out of Egypt. Why is that mentioned? Why is that so important? V'nasnu al tzitzis akanot til tcheles. You have to put tcheles on your tzitzis. Why? Ani Hashem Elokechem. I'm the God who took you out of Egypt. There it is again. Being honest in business, honest scales and weights. Moznei tzedek, avnei tzedek, eifat tzedek, vehin tzedek. All the different measurements and weights used in business. Yelachem. Ani Hashem Elokechem. Hashem says, there it is again. Took you out of Egypt. Right? And to fill in, and of course, all the mitzvahs of Pesach as well. Of course, because that's where the event happened. Why would this be? Why is it that this Mitzrayim is then mentioned in relation to so many mitzvot, which seemingly are totally unrelated in the Torah itself? Why would that be? What do you think? So what changed? We already looked at the answer. What changed when the Jewish people left Egypt? We became a nation under God. That means we became responsible, not just to ourselves and to our families and to our nation, but to God as well. And to God's law, because we were given the Torah. When we left Egypt, we got the Torah. So Hashem is saying, I took you out. I own you. These laws are from me. These are not man-made laws. They are godly laws. They are Torah laws. I set you free. I jumped over the houses of the firstborn, right, Pasach, and saved you. I therefore, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I am revealed in this world through all this action. I know exactly what's happening. There is a divine providence. Hashem says, I'm not, here's your laws, here's your Torah, off I go. Hashem is actively involved. Where do we learn out the idea of active involvement from? From Israel. That's when we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu running the world. So the laws we have are not just laws that kind of like we have to do to keep society afloat. These are the laws we do to connect us to Hashem, to connect us to God. Okay? You hear? So these are divine laws. I'm saying, I took you out. You see I'm in control of the world. And this is what you have to do. Okay? That's how we begin, and that's how it continues. Why? How was it? What was it like before this event happened? Why is it so different? So jump to the next page at the bottom. Let's look at the famous Ramban. This is a very important Ramban that we're going to learn together. Look inside, please. Your books.
Ramban.
Ramban, yes. This is the Ramban and Shemot. 1316. And the Ramban says something very, very interesting. He says, you could divide Jewish history, or even world history, into two phases. Pre-Har Sinai, post-Har Sinai. Before Mount Sinai, and after Mount Sinai. That's how we're going to divide up. In the Har Sinai, we're connecting also the build-up to it, which is Pesach as well. Okay. Why? What was it like beforehand? Hine met hayu avodah zara ba'olam. Before Pesach, before the Jewish people left Egypt, there was a lot of avodah zara, right? In Hebrew, avodah gilulim, in the world. Right? And people started to lose their faith. In other words, Hashem created the world. Everyone knew that when the world was created. And then, soon after, Adam Rishon's grandchildren started to worship idols. And then idol worship became big business. Right? Until we know Terach, Avram Avinu's father, actually worked in the business, like a real Jew. We don't just get involved in it. We buy the business, start selling it. Right? That's how it started. It went down, 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 down. Until Avram Avinu came and took us out of that and started to build us up till we got to Mitzrayim. Okay? I mean, the world was still affected by it. So it started up here, went down, went up again. Mehem Kofar Birka. There were people who started to deny God at all. Chashuv Hashem. They started to not believe in God. V'yamru lo. And they started to deny God. So it started when Hashem created the world. Everyone knew that there was a God. And then eventually it got lost. Avodah Zarah came. They started to make these idols. They represent God. And then eventually they forgot God altogether. Right? So in other words, idols at one point were a way to get to God. And then God was completely forgotten. That's how the Rambam, in his introduction to Hilchot Avodah Zarah, describes it. Started, everyone believed, and then started worshipping idols, and then priests started saying, "Oh, these idols told me da 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 da. You got to worship me, give me your children, give me your money, whatever it was." And then people forgot God altogether. Right? It became one big idol business. And then people started saying, "Well, if there's no God, right, then everything that happens to me is random. Right? There's no God, and there's no sense of the world. It's all everything that happens is random." Okay? And they said that God does not run the world. So we have three things that were happening. One, he says, people denied the existence of God. Some said, no, there is a God, but God is not aware of what's happening in this world. And there were those who were like, no, there is no God. God is not aware of what's happening in the world. Right? Or God is aware, but they deny that he's running the world himself. He's actually involved in the world. Let's write this one down. Let's write this down. This is important.
I don't see the difference in the second and third.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to get it. Let's figure it out. It's an important Ramban. Let's do it together. Let's do it together. So he says phase one. Right? Started off, everyone believed in God. Then eventually came along priests and started making avodah zarah, and idol worship was created, a man-made creation. Okay, so that was gone. Then we got to a point in history, we have terror, and we start selling, as we said. So phase one, there's some people who denied God. Right? There were God deniers. There were those who denied there was a God altogether. Right? That was number one. Then there were people like, no, there is a God. Right? God does exist. However, he's not aware of what's happening in the world. Right, that's it. There is a God, but God's not aware of what's happening. When every small thing, right? An avalanche, I don't know, an avalanche, a flood, anything happens, he's not aware of it. Then they'll be like, no. There is a God, and he is aware, but he can't do anything about it. He's not actively involved. There's no hashgacha. He's not involved. He's not involved in the world. He's aware of it, just like a person watching from the outside, like looking at a snow globe, see all the stuff go around, but he's not aware of it. He's not actively involved in it. Right? So the Ramban says,
aware of it, but he's not active.
he is aware of it. He is aware of it. This is the third group. He is aware of it, but he's not involved in it. He can't stop it. Doesn't make it happen. The world started, nature gets going, and whatever happens, happens. So those are the three levels, right, that existed. Comes along the Ramban and he says, so all of that changed. The whole, he says, Mitzrayim was all really about divine providence. Right? When Hashem took the Jewish people out of Egypt, okay, let's have a look at the bottom paragraph. When God does miracles and changes around all of nature, it becomes clear. Look, to everyone. All of these three things disappear. The miracles that occurred for us, they just happened to get the Jewish people out. They're there to make a point, to teach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is number one. Right? So how do we fight off these three? Right? So they said there is no God. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns around and says, hello, I'm here. Right? So the miracles say that God says, there is a God. And he'll be like, fine. But he's not aware of what's happening. He's like, no, he is aware. Right? He saw what was happening. And he saw there was a nation. He saw the Jewish people were being Hashem. Remember the Jewish people. He is aware. Saw what was happening. Right? He became acutely aware. He saw what's happening to Egypt and the Jewish people. And then be like, fine, so there is a God, and he's aware, but he can't do anything about it. We're like, no, he personally went in, right? Not an angel, he himself went to give you a hole and took the Jewish people out. One goy mitoch goy, one nation from another nation. And that's all the miracles. So Hashem is active in the world. This is Hashgacha. Hashem is mashgiach in the world. He's actively involved. But there's still people who believe that there is a God, but he's not aware of what happens. Stuff just happens by random. Like, no. Everything happens. Where do we see this? Where's the prime example of this? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God took the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. He took us out. He was aware of our trials, aware of our tribulations. Fast is obvious, because Hashem was aware. It wasn't how people did not know this. People still have trouble knowing this. Right? The world was not aware. This is a whole new concept. That God is actively involved, all right? And God is the God of love, right? There were other gods, but they weren't involved, right? They had to be appeased so they wouldn't destroy the world, right? The sun god Ra, the fish god Dagon, or whatever, they had to be appeased. Well, I know Hashem loves us. There is a God. He is aware of what's happening, and he's actively involved, right? The plagues happened, the Jewish people were taken out, and all the other amazing things that happened. This came, so these three things came to fix up those three things. Following?
So after Messianic time?
Yes. It all turned around. There was a whole new way to understand God in the world. And that's what the Jewish people, as a nation, we take out of a nation, come to represent. Hashem's hashgacha, pratit. Right? He's mashgiach over the world and on every individual's life. So I can stand here 3,320 years later and say, I'm alive today because my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother and my great-great-great-great-grandmother and your great-great-great-grandfather and great-great-great-grandmother was saved. Hashem took them out. That's how we say. We say Hashem took them out. No, they escaped. Hashem took them out. That's how we describe it. What does that say? That says something very, very, very big. That we were slaves and then we were taken out. And I'm alive today because they were taken out as well. And all the other implications of it. Trust me, it's a whole new way of looking at the world and creation. Trust me, I'm a rabbi. Okay, finish off the Ramban. It's a classic. So first of all, the prophet comes and says, by the way, this is coming from Hashem. What does a Navi do? What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Right? He turns around and says, but this is going to happen. We are getting out. You can let us go, but if you don't, we're going to be going out anyway. And every time he predicted and said, this is the place going to happen at this time and this way. Right? Now, a person has always left room for doubt. Every plague came with a natural possibility. There still has to be a doubt. It can't be 100%. Right? Then all free will is lost. Right? It can't be 100%. So there's going to be some doubt. Right? However, the Navi is Bar Menu Od Emitad Nevuah, and he verifies his prophecy through it. V'lachen yamas, what it says, Akosov, moftin leman teda, so that you know ki ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. These miracles come so that you know. It was done for the Jewish people. You should know that I am God, b'kerev haaretz, right, on the land, amongst you. Not some distant God who's just like out there, it's just like hanging out. I don't know, Mount Zeus, I don't know. Actually involved.
Who's saying this?
The Ramban is continuing on the next page. Lahoret al hashgacha, right? Hashem is mashgiach, not the Mashiach. Hashem is mashgiach, right? He is actively involved, watching over, right? Like a mashgiach in a kitchen, hopefully, is there to watch over, make sure nothing goes. He's actually involved. Ki lo azavota lemikra kedasam. Not just coincidence. Nothing happens in this world by coincidence. How do you know? Mitzrayim. So why do I have to keep the laws? Why do I have to keep tzitzis? Mitzrayim. Hashem said, this is the law. V'amar laman teda ki l'Hashem haaretz. You should know that Hashem is the land. L'horot ala chidush. Hashem created the world. Hiem shalosh abram mayin. Hashem created the world. Hashem created us from nothing. We were nothing. Hashem created us. But for tedas, you should know ki ein kamoni b'chol haaretz. There's no one else like me in the entire world. L'horot al hayecholet. Hashem has the capability. Shu sholet b'kol. He's in control of everything. Ein makavion. Nothing can hold Hashem back. Even the greatest nation in the world couldn't hold HaKadosh Baruch Hu back. So people always say, well, I'll believe in God when I see signs as well. Let's see it as well. Right? And the answer is, Hashem doesn't do miracles in every generation. Le'inei kol rasha kofer, in order to impress every rasha and non-believer. So what do we have to do? We have to create a constant reminder, a zikaron. So Pesach becomes a reminder, this is the Ramban's thesis, of the miracles. The whole aspect of Pesach is to remember the miracles that happen, because these miracles undo these 3 points, end up undoing those 3 points, and makes the whole thing come into perspective. It's the whole miraculous part. That's the Zecher. And even Shabbat. Why do we keep Shabbat? Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim. Even Shabbat comes as a reminder of Mitzrayim as well. And according to the Ramban, unlike the Rambam, by the way, the Ramban says that's because of the miraculous nature of creation and the world, and that's Shabbat. So we have to make eternal reminders. So every time we put on tefillin, we wear tzitzit, right? Or you act honestly in business, and you read, who's going to know? Who's going to know I'm stealing $1 million? Right? It's like, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. He knows. This is the same God took you out of Egypt. It's the same God. It hasn't changed. Hashem is involved. He's the Mashgiach. So you're right. You don't get caught. You don't get caught. And you're okay according to American law. Right? There's no penalty. But Hashem says, but I'm involved. I see what's going on. I'm Mashgiach. So a whole perspective changes based upon this idea. Oh, let's just finish this off. Right, so we relive the Pesach experience to one aspect of it, to remember this very central point, that Hashem took us out, and Hashem is involved. It says the Rosh, in Orcha Chaim, we'll do it in English. One should trust in God with all one's heart. Right? Our faith comes from this point. We don't believe because Avram told us. We don't believe because one person. We believe because all the Jewish people taken out of Egypt, right, is quantitative and qualitative. Right? Every other religion, as we'll talk about with discuss Shavuot, is one person saying, I heard God speak. We say, no, everyone heard God speak. We were all slaves. Every other religion, right through history, all, I don't know how many there were, 20,000 sects and cults over world history, always have one person, always, maybe 2, if you're lucky. Right? Maybe 2, like the Mormons. Otherwise, always one person who says, I heard God speak. And they've got to believe the one person. The Jewish people say, no. 3 million people, or however many it was. Right? But in the millions. Right? That's a very, very different reality. The other people even claim that. Right? By doing this, one understands the unity of Hashem. He sees everything happens in the world. He sees all the actions, examines our innermost. He even knows our thoughts and our feelings. Right? He quotes Jeremiah the prophet. Because someone does not believe there was a God who took you out of Egypt, doesn't believe there is a God, doesn't believe Hashem creates the world and runs the world as well. So it all started from here. So it's not just the creation of a nation, it's creation of Hashem's involvement in that nation. We did a lot today. Now comes returning of the midterms. They go from happiness and joy to misery and despondence. I'm kidding.
Do we keep the midterms or are we looking
No.